Hooray for Hollywood, where you're terrific if you're even good. Go out and try your luck, you may be down or done. Hooray for Hollywood, hooray for Hollywood.
Hello, welcome to another episode of the Hollywood Knitter vidcast. It is episode 95 and I'm recording on January 3rd, 2026 from my home in Los Angeles, California. My name is Allison and you can find me as Allison1031 on Ravelry and Instagram, though I haven't posted on Instagram forever. It's like on my list to do and I just never do. A lot of people, I still like going to Instagram and seeing people, but I don't know, I just can't seem to do it myself. But it's on my list, so you never know. Anyways, how's everyone been doing? It's been 6 weeks or so, and all the major holidays have passed, at least here in the States. We had Thanksgiving, we had Christmas, we had New Year's, all of those since I last came to you. And so I have a lot of FOs to share. I have some whips, some stories, some travels, as well as my 2025 knitting goal wrap up and my goals for 2026. So this could be a long one. So settle in, grab a beverage, and let's get to it. First off is my first FO. Look at it. I love it. This is the Simple Something by Anna Strict, and this was one of my Make 9, and it was specifically a scrappy project that I wanted to do. So I am very much a girl who likes to use as much of my yarn as possible. And I try to come up with scrappy projects every year for all of the little bits and bobs of fingering and things that you have. I've done Afghans, I've done this, and I've had my eye on doing this type of sweater for a while, where you hold, this one is two yarns together, and I was able to use, as you can see, lots of different things in there. So the yarn. The main yarn that I held throughout was from a cone of Brown Sheep Nature Spun Sport in a cream that I picked off the de-stash table at Knockers, I think last year, maybe 2 years ago, 2024. And then all of the fingering scraps are all scraps. Little things I picked up, yarns I've used, the sample ones that they give you, just the little bits and bobs. I used a lot. So the whole sweater is about 2,300 yards, 1,200 of the sport weight, the cream, and then 1,100 scraps. And of the scraps, I used 206, and I measured the whole time. I used 265 grams of the fingering scraps, and that was 46 different yarns, 46 different colored yarns in here, ranging from 3 grams to like 20 grams. And then I also use some lace. Here in the collar, it's the lace in a cream held double, as well as my cuffs and my button band. And that was just to make it a little lighter. Some sweaters on here, some mods that I did. So originally this calls for a double thick neck, and I had done it in the solid cream and I did not like it. I don't like, and I should realize this about myself by now, I do not like a thick neck. I do not like it tight on my neck, and I don't like a double folded collar. So originally I had done that, and then I had done most of the sweater and it just didn't look right. So rip. So I basically came up here and I cut off the collar, picked up stitches, and then went up. And then used, again, just a scrap lace that I had. I didn't need, I think I need 7 grams total for all of the cuffs, all of the ribbing. And I just used scraps I had. So this was one color scrap, and then I used the same color, not a different color actually, but the same color for my cuffs and my hem. It is knit stockinette. And then you put all the stockinette, but then you have all of your ends to the right side, so that when you finish, you turn it inside out and you wear it with the purl side out. So sleeves are done, and you just have like one line here of, that's a purl stitch when you're making it, but it turns out to be a knit stitch in the round. Awesome. So what else did I do? I followed the size for 2, hoping to get a slightly oversized sweater, which I ended up with. Here, let me pull up my measurements on this. So I ended up with a 43-inch circumference, and I am a 35, 36. So like 7 inches of positive ease. So you can see plenty of positive ease, which ended up being why my sleeves are kind of maybe a little bit longer than they need to be, because I was measuring my sleeves from where I would do, like if I did this, see, it's like perfect if I did that. But because it's oversized and it falls down a little bit, the sleeves are a little long, but they don't bother me right now. I'm just flipping the cuff up, and if it does bother me in the future, I could just easily rip and reknit that. And then my body length is 13 inches, which was perfect, or body from the underarm. Total length is 22 inches. And yeah, I'm super happy with it. It did take me a while. I started this at the end of September and it finished in December. So it took me a good 2.5 months to knit. Not because it was hard, but because I had some travels in there and I did have to pay attention because, as I said, the way I did this to kind of make sure it was, you know, it follows. I'll put a little video in here so you can see it standing up. But as I was knitting it, I basically started off measuring the color scrap I was putting in. And then I had, based on my gauge, done a little bit of algebra and figured out I needed to do about 50%. It ended up working about 50% of that yarn into the body and then 25% into each arm. So as I was knitting the body, which is what I did first, I then split out, you know, I only knit it till it was like half done. And then I switched in another color. And then because, I don't know, I wanted to do both at the same time, I also did one of the sleeves kind of at the same time. And so then I split that into another ball. And then I strung all my balls on a string so that I would know the color progression for the other sleeve. It was awesome. It was, as you can see, it wasn't hard work, but there was a little bit of work. And so it was something I had to do at home. I had a whole little notebook and I was writing all the weights of every scrap down so that then I could also weigh it at the end and know exactly how much I put into the sweater. And yeah, I am super happy with it. I've actually envisioned this kind of more of a house sweater, but I have worn it out. I really like it. The only thing is, as you can see, like my orange bands are very, very striking, let's go with, versus everything else kind of blends in. It is what it is. I'm an orange girl anyway, so the fact that I have orange stripes, love it. I also did kind of my own gradient kind of version. I basically took all of my colored scraps that I was using and I put them into a color progression that I wanted to have. And then kind of actually kept those out for a good solid month so that I could just get the next batch of colors as I went by. So super happy. This was a big sweater. This was a lot of yardage. It was a lot of fun. I got a lot of scraps out of my stash, which I always love. And overall, I'm happy with it. The pattern itself is Simple Something by Anna Strick. Very easy to adapt. I like the purl side out, which is what I wanted. I like the marled effect of the whole sweater and very pleased with it. Super happy with it. So this was definitely a win. I do recommend it if people like to use their scraps. I love scrappy projects, so that was not a bad thing. So that was my big finish in the last bit. I also have done a fair amount of socks. Now, the first socks I call my sherbet cream socks. Aren't they cute? These were done with Fiber MacGyver sock blank and then a mini. So the purple was the mini I chose. You can see I did it. So I did solid toe and then I kind of gradiated, marled. The word is escaping me. That middle age. Anyways, you know what I'm talking about. And then this is all just a sock blank, the mini, and then I also put it in here where I kind of graded it out. Super happy with them. Super cute. Don't know who they're going to be for. Maybe me, maybe someone else, maybe gift, who knows. I like to make socks, and unfortunately I don't have as many people to make socks for. I was making a lot for my mom, and she told me to stop making her socks because she moved to Florida. And she has a lot of my socks. And so now I have plenty of socks. And my boyfriend has plenty of socks. And so now I've kind of started making socks, either with the idea that I'll give them away or for whoever. The next pair of socks that I did was for Advent. So the only Advent I got this year was Woolens and Nosh, who is an amazing dyer. Check her out. She does awesome self-striping. I have a few, but this is my second year getting her Advent, and I love how she does it. She does 2 mini balls in a cute little tote bag. And so you can make them one at a time. You can do them 2 at a time. You basically, as you pull out, you do the color, and then there's a solid in between. So you stop there and then you can do the next stripe. So I actually did mine sooner or faster. And the first pair might be for me. I don't know. We'll see. But here I'm putting them on my sock blocker. But this was the 2026 socks. Now you can see I did a little different. So to start with the blue, and then I did here, and she sends it with a solid. So the brown mini solid comes with it. Now I didn't want to break it up, and I didn't want to do a Fish Lips Kids heel. I did the Sockmaticians heel on this, and so rather than have weird stripes, when I started doing the gusset increase and the heel, I just did the solid brown, and then picked back up with the striping after that. And I didn't do a full, how many stripes? I didn't do the full 24 stripes on it. I think I got 21, but super happy with it. It is a little tight, and that is because I usually do my socks on 1.5, but I didn't have one available, so I'm like, you know what, I'll go ahead and do it on a 1. And that might have been a mistake because I am a tight knitter, and the 1, and then I did my normal 64 for me, it's a little tight. So we shall see if this stays for me or if it becomes a gift for someone. I realized that I was going, but I just didn't want to stop. I wanted to do it. And I finished these by December 12th. No, when did I finish these ones? I finished these 21st. And I got a whole pair of socks. I don't do them super tall. But then I was able to start another pair of socks right away to use it all up with the color. And I did these for my brother. So that was another reason to stop the stripes, because I knew I would need a little bit more for my brother. My brother is a size men's US 13, 14 foot, long foot. But as I mentioned, maybe in the last one when we went to South America, he likes my socks and he wears them. And so he is my current other person I'm making socks for. And luckily he likes shorties. He doesn't really like tall socks because that would be a really tall sock, but it's a really tall foot. All right, so this isn't the best sock blocker because obviously he's got big feet. So I did a pair of shorties for him. And so I had the brown, and in this one, these are the last 3 stripes that I didn't do in my sock, and then it restriped again all the way for the full 24. So his is 27 stripes. I did do a Fish Lips Kiss heel for him because I did. And then the toe. The only thing is that on the other one, and I thought this might happen, so I had picked out kind of a little scrap I brought with me because I knit these almost entirely on my trip to Florida to see my family. I think I started them on the 22nd, and I finished them on the 31st. So I knit these in about a week, and all of one was finished in Florida, and then half of the second one. All right, but the other one, do you see what's different? This one has one more different color, not in the Advent. I ran out of the brown, and before I started, and I knit my toe up, and so I thought that might happen, and so I brought another kind of yarn, and it goes. And so this sock has one more stripe than the other one, slightly less brown on the toe. My brother doesn't care. In fact, I showed it to him, said, hey, do you know? And he's like, I would never seen that. He's not that kind of detail guy. So he's got another pair of socks that I'll give him next time I see him, which will be end of February when we go on our next big adventure. So that was another pair of socks for him. And then my last pair of socks is also for him. And these are ones I started these December 1st. with the idea of these were my first project for a little while. And then I brought them with me traveling to finish and then finished them by the end of the year. I almost cleaned off my needles for the end of the year. It was awesome. It was my goal. On December 31st, I only had one project on the needles. So this pair of socks was with, what sock is this? It's the Hermione's Everyday Socks. So I did a kind of a pattern on this one. You can see here, Hermione's Everyday, they've been around forever. It's really just a knit purl pattern every other row and alternating. It's super easy to memorize to see where you're at. And this is another mini. I have a lot of minis from previous advents that I just pull out. And so I pulled out a mini, and then this yarn is Apple Fiber Studio Macintosh. It's a 60% merino, 20% alpaca, 20% nylon. And I've had this in my stash for a while, so it's on my list of things I need to try to get out because it's an older skein. I picked it up at Stitches West years and years ago. 2019 maybe? 2018? Somewhere around there. So yeah, so he's got another pair of socks. Again, did the fish lips kiss heel on this just because it was easy. It didn't obviously break up the yarn or anything. It had some kind of pooling, kind of unintentional striping. So yeah, so I finished another pair of socks for my brother. So he will have 2 new pairs of socks when he comes. Not that where we're going, he'll probably need them, but he can take them back with him. Yeah. So those are the 4 pairs of socks I finished. I also finished a hat. This is, what is this hat? This is the Bolton hat by Espastrico. And it is a very simple rib. And you can see it's ribbed all around the start, and then you keep ribbing here. So it ribs and it decreases, or increases rather, you change it. You go from stockinette into it. And so it's kind of this pattern. Now my yarn is a gift from a friend. My friend Janice at Queen City Yarns dyed up this sock blank for me, or I guess it's not a sock blank because it was a DK blank. And the colorway is Cold New England Beach, and it was for me. And so yeah, this is a great little, and it kind of, you know, pooled and things like that, but I love it. And it was just a quick hat. I like knitting hats. And so I need a hat. I would put it on, but it's gonna mess everything up. But I recommend the pattern. Maybe not in this kind of yarn because it doesn't really show up as well, but in a great solid, this kind of ribbed pattern shows up really well. But I didn't care because I love it anyways. And then at the top, you can kind of see I kind of got the bullseye effect because obviously as you're decreasing, it changes how it pulls. So yeah, that was the Bolton hat. And the last thing I did was a shawl. Now I went to Hohi's Retreat, as you guys know, and I got some yarn. And so her mystery shawl for November came out while we were there. And I didn't knit it right then, but I did decide I was going to make it be my memory project. And so I cast on for it with a skein of yarn. Oh, let me show you the right side. With a skein of yarn that I got in the goodie bag there. And this yarn is the Hunoko Morona de la Patagonia single in Bruma Adina. And it's this beautiful kind of creamy with some mauve tones in it and pink. And I only had one skein, which was perfect. I actually wanted to use every little bit of it, and I ended up with a shawl 68 inches, which is my wingspan, by 16 inches. And this is a very simple lace shawl that she did. The only thing is, and a lot of people talked about it, the way the tab cast on is, it does create a little kind of lip at the top, or a little curve at the top. Not anything bad, but basically it's a progressive garter stitch, and then with some lace panels, the lace panels progressively get larger. Right here after this big one, it actually called to end, but I had a fair amount of yarn left. And so I calked it and had enough to do another little kind of smaller lace panel before I did the bind off. So I used every little bit and some. So I played yarn chicken and I lost. But luckily I had some more of this yarn in a similar colorway, more of the mauve tone. And so here, let's see if you can see it. So there, yarn, 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 and then the end, you really can't really see it, is the just more of the mauve only, as opposed to the cream and mauve together. It was fine. I basically took the yarn and just wound off a few yards and cast off with it. It wasn't going to rip back. I don't mind playing yarn chicken. In fact, I've done it a few times, but I really love it. And then obviously I pinned it pretty aggressively so that I would get points for the lace. And it's so soft. It is so soft. This yarn, because it's a single, and it is really nice. I just love it. This is for me. I'm definitely, as I said, I'm keeping this one. It will be a memory. It will be it will be a hug, you know, because I, you know, got this yarn from Joji at Joji's retreat in Buenos Aires, and it's her pattern, and it just will remind me of that wonderful trip and that wonderful retreat. And so I do recommend it. She's since then come out with the pattern itself. As again, it's a great one skein project. I like knitting shawls. I don't wear them as much as I could or should. Not as cold in California, Southern California especially. So I don't always wear them, but I do have them up on a wall, and I do pull them out every so often. And I actually like wearing the shorter ones more than the big ones. I have a few like Stephen West size, Schlanket size, and I don't tend to wear those hardly at all. I keep them because I love them and they're beautiful. But this size, this kind of depth of like 16-inch wingspan wrapped around my neck is what I like to wear. So that is the One Love Mystery Shawl by Joji Locatelli. I recommend it. I recommend this yarn, this Hunoko. I actually have 2 skeins. Do I have 2 more skeins? I think I have 2 more skeins of it that I had gotten, and then I have bought some of it for a Elton that I'm going to do. And if eventually, I don't know when. I'll talk about that in my knitting, but I have a long list of things to do. So those are all of my FOs. 4 pairs of socks, a hat, a sweater, and a shawl in 6 weeks. So it's a lot of knitting happening because I had a lot of travel. But first, let's go into my whips. My other big whip that I started, when did I start this one? I think I started it at the end of November 28th. So I've been knitting on this a little over a month, and I think I'm going to finish it this weekend. And this is the Lento by Jonna Helene. A lot of people have done the Lento. This is a fingering and a lace held together, very big gauge, very drapey, very loose, and look at my colors. I love this. This is totally me. Totally me. I love these colors. So I'm using Emma Yarn's Hella Hank that I picked up at Virginia Beach a few years ago. This hank is 600 yards. It's like 150 grams. And so I got 2 of these. And you can kind of see it's kind of this taupey, and then it has like just little pops of orange in it. And so I was looking for a while for a lace weight to go with it. And at Maryland Sheep and Wool this past year, I got this, which is Little Fox Nuages. And this is a Surrey silk lace and Honey Bear. And together, it's interesting. So here it is there, and then knit together, it kind of tones down that what seems like a bright orange, but when knit in, definitely becomes more of a gold, definitely more of a honey, and I'm loving it. I have knit the entire body, which might be a little long. I might have to rip it out. We'll see. Because of where I was knitting it, I kind of just counted rows and based on gauge, kind of guessed my length. So it might be a little long. I'll have to wear it. But then I finished the sleeve, one sleeve yesterday, actually already, and I did the tubular bind off on the cuff, and it's so beautiful. And then yesterday I got the other half of the sleeve. I think I just finished the decreases. And so yeah, it's going fast. It's on like size 10 needles. It's held together. When I sit and knit on it, it's super, super fast. So by the time, this will definitely be an FO on the next one. And lots of people have knit the Lento. A lot of people love it. I think I'm going to get a ton of wear out of this. This is a very lightweight, but warm sweater, and perfect kind of weight for Southern California, I think. Especially this kind of year. And it's so soft. The Surrey. I think I like Surrey mohair. I mean, Surrey lace over mohair lace, but we'll see. I don't think I've knit anything before with holding a lace weight, but I have another sweater that I think I have a mohair for. So we'll see. But the Lento, highly recommend it. I have it in my favorite Fat Squirrel bag. Old, but I love it. You can see these are my colors. This brown with the orange and the red. It's just so me. The other thing I had cast on New Year's Eve, and this was because in Florida. So I went to Florida to see my family. They just, my brother, my sister, and her family and my mom had all moved down to Florida to be closer to family. My sister bought a house down there, and then my grandmother needs some assistance. So my mom and my brother moved in with her to help her out. So we went all for Christmas, and for the first time ever, my boyfriend came. We've been together. I mean, we're more than, he's my partner. We've been together 11 years, 12 years. And he has never come to Christmas because his son was younger and things like that. So we always celebrated. So this was the first year he came to Christmas to see my family. And anyways, while we're down there, we're hanging out with family, and my sister's there with her kids. And my youngest niece, who just turned 6 while I was there, we actually went to her birthday party, saw me knitting on my brother's socks, the advent socks. And, you know, because I'm constantly just knitting when you're standing around talking to family. And she asked, she's like, where's my socks? Can I have a pair of socks? And I was like, sure. But if you don't wear them, you don't get another pair. So I do that for my nieces and nephews when they're kind of that age. If they request something, I'll make it. But then if I find out they don't actually wear that, then it's a one and done. And so she's like, no, I want it. And I like the rainbow yarn, or I like pinks and greens. And anyways, so we went on Ravelry, and she kind of picked out a yarn that I'd knit something before, and it's rainbow-ish, and it has some of the colors. And this is the first one. It's super fast. I knit this pretty much this entire sock on New Year's Eve, and I started the toe for the other one. And when I find some time, I'll do it. But the 6-year-old feet, super fast. So this is a sock, toe up. It's only 52 stitches, obviously very short, Fish Lips Kiss Heel. And the yarn is Desert Vista Dye Works, the Zoe in something May. Wrapped up in May. And I knit another pair of socks out of this actually for my partner's mom for her birthday, her 90th birthday, which is kind of funny now I'm thinking about it, because she has the same birthday as my niece that I knit these for. So they're birthday twins, and they're going to be sock twins. I just thought of that. Funny story though about that. So I was knitting, and I was like, okay, well, I have to measure your feet and things like that. So I pulled my tape measure out, and my mom was like, I think I might have a pair of socks that fit her. I'm like, your socks won't fit her. What are you talking about? And she went into her sock drawer, and because she's my mother and cannot get rid of anything I've ever made, apparently, she pulled out these pair of socks. And I was like, she's like, yeah, I think you made these for my Sky, who's my middle niece, who's 16, almost 16. And I was like, I don't think so. I'm like, I definitely knit them, but I don't remember. So I went into a Ravelry, because this is why Ravelry exists. And I went back and I found them, and I knit these in 2007 for, at the time, my 6-year-old nephew, who is now 25. Right? Am I doing my math right? 2007, 17. Yeah, somewhere around there. So yeah, these fit. They were a little long. However, one of the socks had some holes in it. Probably, I don't know, age. They're old. They look like they've never been worn. But this fit mostly, and so I basically took it as my, hey, this fit her feet. She did not like these colors though. This was not the rainbow she wanted. But yeah, so I'm probably gonna put this in like my special keepsake box, just to remind me, like, you know, I used to knit some stuff for my nephew back in the day, but he wasn't big into knits, so we stopped making him. So here's her sock. Here's the sock from 2007 for, at the time, my 6-year-old nephew. Now this is almost, 20 years later for my 6-year-old niece. Very funny. So those are my 2 whips. That's all I have. I'm going to cast on another whip soon, but I have to figure out what it's going to be. But it's only Saturday, so I will finish my Lento and then I'll do that. Knitting, I think before I kind of talk about life and things like that, I'm going to do my 2025 wrap up and into my kind of 2026 goals. So let me pull up my knitting goals. So every year I make some rough knitting goals, and they've been pretty similar. I have my knitting goals in my note here going all the way back to 2013. So I've been making them for a while. Last year's goals was less stash by 20%. I wanted to maintain a goal of having a stash of about 40,000 yards. Now I put almost everything into Ravelry. When something becomes small scraps for any weight, so anything basically below 20 grams is not in my Ravelry. But I do have kind of a mini, I do have a entry for minis. And so if I have whole minis, I count them. But anything less than that, it doesn't. So they get counted in my total for when I make a sock. So like I'll put a mini and then I'll measure whatever my mini. And so I know exactly kind of what went into the sock, but it's not exactly my stash. All I'm saying is my Ravelry stash is like 95% there. There's probably another 5% lying around or less that isn't counted. But so my goal last year, I started with 52,000 yards of yarn and I failed. I ended the 2025 with 66,000 yards. Instead of decreasing 20%, I increased 20%. And I'm okay with that. Part of that is I bought a lot more sweater quantities. I have a lot of sweater quantities now. Whereas before I would buy a lot of single skeins, fingering, and stuff like that. And so now I have about the same number of items in my Ravelry. I think I had 121 items last year, meaning individual yarns or colors, and now I have 127. So I don't have that many more, but I have a lot more yards, and so that is definitely sweater quantities. The difference between buying 1 skein and like 4 skeins, and I'm okay with that. I'm not going to have that goal for 2026. I had a goal for less buying, also failed. I wanted to buy a max of 2 sweater quantities. I easily got like 8. But part of that with my previous year was I had in my head, I have an area for my yarn and I don't want to outgrow it. I have like 3 smaller totes. Most of my yarn is in totes, and then I have a glass face cabinet. But as you may remember, I bought a new cabinet specifically to show off my sweaters so I could see them all, glass front, and in the top, I have more room for yarn. So my capacity for more yarn and stash has grown, and my desire for more sweater quantities and to knit more sweaters has grown. So all that's good. Charity knitting, yes, I've continued my charity knitting. I did a bunch of hats. I sent a whole box to Knit the Rainbow that had socks and scarves and hats. So when in doubt, I make a hat and I'll send it. I'm very much a process knitter. I have not a problem letting knits go. The joy is in the making for them and sending them out into the world and sending some love. I also have a goal, and I'm pretty into this, where I want to keep moving my stash out. I don't like to have a super old stash. I know some people have been knitting, and I've been knitting 25 years, more than that, I think. So in theory, I could have some very old yarns, but none of the yarns in my stash at the beginning of last year were older than 2017. And I have the goal of, I want all of the yarn in my stash to be roughly 5 years, no more, because I don't want to hold it. I want to knit it. New yarns come in, fashions, colors, things change. So I don't want to just, keep things and then have it be a burden to me. So I have this goal every year of using my older stash. So last year's goal was use 50% of the yarn that I had was 2019 or older. And that was 13 full skeins and 13 partial skeins. Partial meaning I'd used it, but still had more than 20 grams. So it was still in my Ravelry stash. And I was awesome. I used 80% of it, and of 2017, 2018, and 2019 yarns, and I used all of my 2017 that I had left. I have 5 items for 2018 left and 2 items for 2019 left. So super, super happy with that. And then I had a Make 9, and my Make 9 is all stash yarn, usually heavily focused on using that older stash that I'm trying to move out, but sometimes I put other projects on. This was on there for last year. And I was successful. So with the Make 9 that I set at the beginning of the year, I did 3 hats, 2 cowls. No. Yeah, maybe. Yeah, 1 shawl and 3 sweaters. Sorry, my Make 9. And that was consisting of, I did the Ink Hat by Jennifer Dessau, the Thistlehorn Hat by Lavinia Petrasella, the Deep Woods Toque by Kiyomi Bergen, the Sidestoke Brioche Cowl by Tina Whitmore, the Foolproof Cowl by Louise Zaz Bingham, Free Your Fade by Andrea Mowry, that was the shawl I did, and then I did the Ali Sweater by Sarah Opie, the Grayer Carden by Hannah Majeska, and then the Simple Something. This was the last one I finished, and all of that was with yarn that I had at the beginning of the year in my stash, and I'm pretty happy with that. That kind of setting this up and kind of thinking about it for the next year means I have projects that I know I definitely want to do, as opposed to in my queue now, which has grown quite a bit. I have, you know, even though I have the yarn for it, it's like, do I feel like knitting it? Am I ready for it? So by making these 9 projects, something I will definitely do in 2026, and specifically to move some of this yarn, it helps focus me. So overall for 2025, and I have a lot. I did 50 projects. I did 50 projects that equaled 18,400 yards. This is the most projects I've done since I started tracking down 2013. Last year I did 40 projects, and this year I did 50. The yardage though is roughly the same. I did 18.7 last year, and I did 18.4 this year yards. So I did more smaller projects, and I know that's because socks. So I did 14 hats this year. That is up from the 12 I did in 2024. I did 20 pairs of socks. I did a lot of socks. The previous year I did 15, and that is a jump, where before that I would do 8 to 10. So I've definitely doubled my socks. I did a lot of scrappy socks. I did socks for my brother. I did socks for me. I was just knitting a lot of socks, which I like knitting socks. They're my favorite purse project. So, but 20 is quite a bit. I also did 3 scarves or cowls. I did 4 shawls and 2 baby hats, 3 sweaters. I would have thought I did more sweaters, but I only did 3. And then 1 tee and 1 other. Oh, the other is knitter knockers. That's what I count in there. And so of those 50, 18 were for charity, 10 were for gifts, 14 were for me. Some of those may be socks that I've put away for me that may not end up being for me. We'll see. And then 8 in my gift box, meaning I know I want to give them away. I'm not sure who. So yeah, I'm happy with my output. You know, I still love knitting, and I definitely love tracking too. So 2026 goals. What am I doing? I'm looking at the wrong one. It's 2026 goals. So for my stash, I just want to maintain my stash. That's all I want to do. So I'm at roughly 65,000 yards right now, and I want roughly equal in, equal out. I definitely don't need to buy any yarn for a while, but not to say that I won't. Most of my yarn buying is done at festivals. In fact, I would say 90+% of it is done at yarn festivals or yarn events I go to. So I will be going to some this year, and so I know I'll be buying, but I'm hoping to knit with what I have, because my queue is now exceeded 1 page. Now my queue, the way I use it in Ravelry, is I have the yarn and I have the project, and so I have a fair amount of sweaters on there now. And I just noticed I've passed the single page. I'm on a second page of my queue. Page holds 25 projects. And so between sweaters, hats, cowls in there, like I have a lot of stuff that I can knit on. So I kind of want to maintain my stash and limit myself, like I usually do, to knitting events, but really kind of work on some of these sweaters that I have. I want to continue charity knitting. I love making a hat. I love using scraps for hats. I love sending a box once a year to Knit the Rainbow, and they take socks, they take hats, they take mittens, they take sweaters. Like, yeah, I love that charity. And then also some Knitted Knockers, which is the charity that is the Knockers retreat that I go to every year. So do some of those. I want to use all of my yarn that is 2020 or older. That is not that bad. I only have 6 full skeins and 5 partial skeins to do. And my Make 9 this year is heavily focused on getting those old yarns out. And then to get a jump, I want to use 50% of my yarn that came in 2021, which is 8 full skeins and 3 partials. And that is my goal. And then I have a Make 9 goal. I have 4 sweaters / tees, 1 pair of socks, 2 cowl or scarf, and then 1 hat. And those projects, which I'll kind of show here, I'll kind of talk a little bit over them. But the first one is a Scrappy Yoke sweater by Olga Patano. And this is a recent project or a recent pattern that's come out that I love it because it's scrappy-ish. It is just kind of 4 skeins of sock fingering weight, and you do this great color work. It came out in September 2025. I am using 4 yarns that are in that old stash, and they all kind of go together. It is a black, a gold. I think this might be the one I cast on this weekend, so you might be seeing it in the next one. But I'm pretty excited with kind of the look of the sweater with a black and a gold, and then I have a great kind of gradient, and then kind of like an off cream. So it's gonna look great. So that is the first sweater I have up. Then I want to do a Christmas sweater this year. Now, one of the things I buy a lot from is a Kickstarter that does Mongolian yarn really cheap. It's called Ula and Leah. It's a Kickstarter every year, and I'm a sucker for this Kickstarter. I've been backing it forever, and so I have a lot of these yarns. So I am going to do a Christmas sweater, and it's the Christmas Bell by Isabel Kramer. And it is this great sweater you see here. It has got just a very simple motif, kind of looks like a Christmas ornament. And I'm going to be doing mine in a cream body with a red that I have. And it's all going to be, the main body is going to be a wool cashmere blend. And then the red is actually going to be cashmere. So pretty excited about that, to have a Christmas sweater. And the other sweater I'm going to do, which is going to be a scrappy, is a sea glass cardigan. Wool and Pine put this out, and they do a lot of sea glass. There's a sea glass t-shirts, there's hat, and then this is the cardigan. My friend Liz has almost finished hers, and it is gorgeous. And I love a scrappy. So I'm going to do this. It's actually a DK weight. So I have a solid brown that I'm going to use for the ribbing and things like that. And then I'm going to hold fingering together to get all the DK. So I'm probably going to do this towards the end of the year so I can pull all my scraps that I've made throughout the year as I do socks and things like that. And yeah, so I'm going to do the sea glass cardigan. Then I have up the City Limits by Tanis Lavallee. And a few years ago, Hugh Loco is a great yarn dyer, and she does beautiful colorways, and she also does great kind of monthly things. And a few years ago, she did one for gemstones for monthly, and so I picked up a set of Hugh Loco single sock in the opal colorway, and I think I got it 3 years ago? No, longer, 2021. And I have a lot because I got the 50-gram skeins, and so it's 10 50-gram skeins. So this sweater isn't going to use all of that, but it is the it's another one held together, and so it's going to be kind of a color gradient, and then I have a lace weight to hold with it, and I'm looking forward to doing that. This sweater is from March 2020, beautiful, lots of people have done it, and I'm really excited about doing that. So another one I'm doing is going to be the Skyscraper Windows by Babs Osherman. And this is specifically to use at Maryland Sheep and Wool. My friends and I all picked up one skein of kind of the spin cycle type of yarn. It's actually, though, it's from Sweetser Fiber Mill. And so I'm going to do this as a cowl so that I can wear it and bring it to Rhinebeck probably. And another one I'm going to do is the Once Upon a Rhinebeck hat by Mary Aranella. And this was yarn I picked up the last Rhinebeck I went, so it wasn't this year, but the previous year. And so I want to knit it up as kind of a Rhinebeck hat. It's just a all color work flower hat, as you can see. And I had actually picked up 2 minis from Miss Babs specifically for this hat. And I already bought the pattern too. Sock set, the Ooey Gooey sock set by Andrea Mowry. I have a set of yarn that I think this will be good for. It's Lolo Bean in the Zombie Express. It's like this great white yarn with a contrasting, and this sock just kind of interests me. So I don't always do patterns for socks because I like a lot of mindless knitting on my socks. This is probably pretty mindless, but I'm going to specifically do that because this sock yarn is part of my old stash. So I'm going to do that. The Dewdrop Scarf by Lisa Hannes. I just did the Hummel. One of my recent projects was from Hohi, and it's, I cannot say the name of it, Hemmelfjellin. It's an Icelandic building. It's a building in Iceland, in Reykjavik. And I love the shape of this. It is just kind of like the triangle. It's triangle and then decrease, and I'm, anyways. This Dewdrops scarf is the same kind of shape, and I just wore this for the first time. I wore it at New Year's, and I just like the shape of it. It just fits around your neck right, and it just ties, and it's that perfect tie. A lot of people are doing, like, I don't know, all of those kind of smaller shawl fits or small ones where they're just tying around the neck. It's that kind of style, but longer. And so I'm going to do this with some Mongolian cashmere I have from my Kickstarter that I've had for a few years, and just make a nice gray one. Super excited about that. And then the last one I'm doing is tee. It's the Trelawney Top by Tammy Gore. It is a t-shirt that I picked yarn up for a long time ago at Zombie Apocalypse from Yarnaceous. And it's her golly fingering, which I believe is a linen. Let me double check. I guess it's 100% superwash. No, 100% merino. I thought it was a blend, but whatever. I specifically picked it up to do this t-shirt. So those are my 9 for this year, and I will sprinkle them in throughout the year to make sure I get them done in time. But with 4 sweaters and then the smaller ones, yeah, we'll get in there. And then my queue, as I said, I have a lot more things to choose from in the in-between. There'll be socks, there'll be hats, there might be another sweater. I need to make more sweaters. I love making sweaters. And I have in my queue right now yarn to make. I'm up to, the first page is 30. So I have 33 sweaters, not just sweaters, 33 projects, of which 2/3 of them are sweaters. I have sweater quantities for, or tees or things like that. So my buying needs to be less sweater based and maybe more just small accessory based when I go to these fiber events, so that I can get a jump on some of these sweaters I want to do. So yeah, that's my 2025 roundup, my 2026 goals. I also have life goals that I made. I actually use a little Moleskine for notes and things like that. And so how I use mine is I have goals that I do at the beginning of every year, kind of write them down. My life goals revolve around people, relationships, making sure, putting in the work for, date nights and things like that. I have money goals, increasing my overall wealth year after year, which I've been doing pretty good at, with the whole goal of retirement. I am turning 50 this year, and I will be retiring at like 55, 56 as soon as I turn. I also have some enrichment, some charity, health, travel. I managed a fair amount of travel last year, which is great. It was a great year for travel. I ended up doing, my goal every year is to do 1 international trip and then 10 overall trips, family, friends, knitting, etc. And I actually did 15 trips last year. Some I'm going to talk about one a little bit. I got to sprinkle in a few more couple trips. I only did 2 trips as a couple. I do a lot more solo trips or other things like that. But excited. I have for 2026 my travel plans. I have my big international trip that is going to be to Vietnam with my brother and Hong Kong for 2 nights, and that's at the end of February, so that's just around the corner. And then I'm also doing the Grocery Girls Alaska cruise with my mom, so that's another big trip. Then I have various knitting going to Rhinebeck this year. I have another knitting trip with my friend. I'm going to the Virginia Beach getaway with my friend Martha. Knit Crit puts on in February. And then I'm also doing the Northern California knitting retreat that I usually do. And so, yeah, and then we'll see some other things in there as well. So very excited. Travel makes me happy. I like to go travel, and then I like to come home and be an introvert. So yeah, so pretty happy with 2025. Health-wise, I'm maintaining my weight loss, and that's wonderful, and increasing my activity and doing all of that. I'm feeling very good. I actually have a checkup with my doctor, I think next month. And so I'll see if all of my numbers and everything are good, but I think they will be. And yeah, I'm in a good place. I'm pretty happy. Pretty happy with how 2025 worked for me, and I'm hoping 2026 is another great year, both personally, professionally, and knitting wise. So where does that put us at? Let's go back to my normal notes. Let me pause 1 second while I itch my nose. Done. All right. So what's other things have been happening since I last saw you? I did a crazy trip on Amtrak. So my partner did a trip for himself that I would have loved to have gone, but it was too close to coming back from my other trip, where he went to Germany, and then from Germany he took the Queen Mary back to New York, the cruise liner. The transatlantic liner is not really a cruise ship. And I met him in New York the day before Thanksgiving, US Thanksgiving. And then we took Amtrak, the train, all the way back from New York to Los Angeles. And it was crazy. So we did Los Angeles to Chicago, Chicago to Portland, and then Portland down to Los Angeles. And that was 4 nights. So we left on Wednesday in New York. I met him there. He got off the boat. We got on the train. And Wednesday, it took about 18 hours to go from New York to Chicago, where it was very, very cold on Thanksgiving. We had some delays and things like that due to ice storms and weather, but we got in Chicago with enough time to make our next train, our connection. We actually had about 3 hours in Chicago. It was barely cold on Thanksgiving. We walked quick little in the downtown loop area, and then we went to Giardino's for Thanksgiving. We actually, by the time we got there, we were running a little out of time, so we were not able to get at the deep dish, which they're known for their deep dish pizza. And instead, he got lasagna and I got a beef dip sandwich. It was so good. It was so good. So we did that, and then we went back to the train station. We got on our next train, and our next train went from Chicago to Portland, and that was 2 nights. The first train, we stayed in what they call a bedroom. It's a slightly bigger room. It was nice. We were able to put the bed out and actually sleep together. It's got a full-size bed at the bottom, and then it has a bunk bed. So you can technically fit 3 people in there. We were only 2, and that was nice. But then the rest of the trip, we had romettes, which are 2 seats facing together in a little kind of private area. It is tight. And then at night, those 2 seats go down and create a bed, and then a bunk bed comes from up above. And when you do the rooms, the bedrooms, or the romettes, food is included. So you get to eat in the dining car for breakfast, lunch, and dinner for whatever meals that you're on there. And it's pretty good. It's pretty decent food. If you have to do just the cafe car, it's all just microwave. But here they have like a convection oven. It is kind of prep food. I will say, well, I'll talk about the food in a minute. So Chicago to Portland in November, snow. We basically went through North Dakota, Montana. We saw so much snow, and my partner does not like snow. but you can get off for like health breaks when they stop to refuel or to switch out food or to get new crew. Because although your room attendant stays on the entire trip, the actual, I'm blanking on the word again. I don't know why I'm blanking on conductors. The conductors do not stay on. They work 8-hour shifts, I think. So you stop at these stops and new staff gets on for conductors and I believe the engineer. And so some of those stops you have longer breaks. So you have like a half hour or 45 minutes. You can get off the train, you can walk around. And so we did that in a few places where it was snowy and cold. And I thought it was beautiful to watch. I got a lot of knitting done. I brought my Lento, got some of that. I did some socks. Read a book and just, looked out the window at the train at the snow going by with just fields and fields of like emptiness and snow. I mean, it's a part of I've actually never been up into the Dakotas or Montana area kind of thing. And so it was very, very interesting. And so we were on that for 2 nights. And then the last day, as you're coming in, you come out of the snow into Oregon. And the train splits. I forgot where they split it, but half the train goes to Seattle and then half the train goes to Portland. And in order to catch the train that I needed to go to LA, we went to Portland, and you go along the river and it's just beautiful. It was so nice. We saw sun, we got in, we got off in Portland, and we had 3 hours. So we walked down to the bookstore, we went to Powell's and got a book, and then we went to a brewery and had a great lunch, and then back on the train. And then from there, we took another train down to Los Angeles. So overall, we were on the train for 4 nights. We got back on Sunday night, right? Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Yeah, we got back on Sunday night. I will say that I love train travel this way because you have to be flexible because delays happen a lot. I personally, that was a bit too long on the train, mainly because of food. You are eating the same menu. And so by the last dinner meal, I was like, I don't want the steak. I don't want the chicken. Can I have the kids' meal hot dog? And that's what I had. Because it is a little repetitive. It's the same menu over and over, which if you're on for 1 night or even 2, you can have 2 different entrees, but for 4 nights, it's the same thing. So that was the only thing. I would say ideally we had done a trip, I don't know, a few years ago, I guess almost a decade ago, where we'd taken the train from LA to Chicago, the Southwest Chief, and that was 2 nights and that was perfect. So if you're interested in that kind of travel, a lot of people do coach, and those are wide seats. You can do it, but it's just when it comes to sleeping that it is uncomfortable. And when you get a roomette, it is not cheaper than flying. You are doing it either because you don't like to fly, there's a reason you're doing it, or you're doing it for the adventure of the train trip to get somewhere, which is what we were doing. But it is not cost effective to do that way. But it was an adventure and it was fun. And I liked it. As I said, I would love to do, and I've always wanted to do the train up to Seattle. And now that we've taken it one way, like there was some beautiful country up in, coming out of Portland, but because you gotta, you are sleeping and it's dark for some of the hours, especially when you do in winter where sun comes. There are just certain times of the year where depending on which direction you're going, there's recommended you go that way or this way. So we were not choosing a trip based on that. We were going from New York to LA. So I definitely would say that there are some other trips I would like to do. Like I would love to take it up to Seattle and then like stay overnight in Seattle and fly back, or Portland. I would love to go back to Portland. I had only gone to Portland once before and a few hours, and it's a great little trip, way to get up there. And yeah, so we did that. That was a great adventure. And then, as I said, I went to Florida to see the family. My grandmother lives in Lakeland. My uncle and my sister live just north of Tampa. We did Christmas, New Year's, that kind of thing. And so that was a great trip. And it was great to see my grandmother and the nieces and nephews and my brother and sister and my mom and my uncle and all that stuff. And then Florida, it's the best time of the year to visit is, when it's 70, no humidity, that kind of thing. Events. I did go to SoCal Fiber Fest in between. That is kind of replacing almost Stitches, I think. It's getting bigger and bigger every year. I did get some yarn, but I already put it away. So you'll see it when I use it. But I got a sweater quantity of yarn there, which is my sweater quantity. So that was fun though. I met my friend Priscilla and for the day, and we went and did some yarn shopping. And then I've also, as part of my Broadway season tickets, I saw 2 shows, neither which I knew anything about. One was called Suffs, and it was based on the suffragette movement, and it was great. If the tour is coming to your town, I highly recommend it. I can't say that I knew a lot about the suffragettes or remembered. I mean, the last time I learned about the suffragette movement was in high school, and so definitely didn't have that familiarity with the history anymore or the people of it, and so this was great. The main character, or the main cast, the lead member, was an amazing, phenomenal performer, singer, everything. It was so enjoyable, and it's an all-female cast, so the few male roles are also played by females, and so that's also very empowering. So if you were looking, if it's touring the United States, if it's coming, it's called Suffs, short for suffragettes. I highly recommend it. Now the other one I saw, I would not recommend. I kind of hated it. It was called Stereophonic, and it is more of a play with music, not a musical. And it is basically a band that is based on the 70s group that was Stevie Nicks was in. Again, my brain. All right, I gotta look it up, which all you guys are yelling at me because I should know. Fleetwood Mac. Heavily based on Fleetwood Mac. It was basically, 2 couples and a thing, and it follows them over a few months while they're recording this album, and it's like the personal thing, and I just hated them all. Like, they were not great people. The music, although the music was good, it wasn't like musical. It was like rock music. This was probably the first show that I could have walked out in an intermission, and I would not have worried about it. But as usually happens, my partner liked it more, and so he didn't want to leave at intermission, so I sat through it. But I did not like it. I had no sympathy for these people. I could care less what happened to them. It wasn't catchy. Part of that, someone was saying, I was reading the reviews, and it is a very polarizing show. You either really enjoy it or you really don't. And I think part of, some people had said that it is better in a small, intimate theater as opposed to the very large theater that I saw it in, and I could see that because it's basically a play. And so, like, maybe if I could see the nuances of people's reactions and their faces, as opposed to, I sit further back for my season tickets, and you don't see that. But in a musical, you get the dancing and you get the singing, and so you get a lot of it. But if it is a nuanced play, it's not the best venue. So take my my opinion. You can see it for yourself. It's another touring show, Stereophonic, but I would not recommend. Next show we have, which I actually am offering the tickets up to my boyfriend's son, is The Notebook. And then, what was the one after The Notebook? I forget what the next one is. There's a few more. I really enjoy having the season tickets. Ends up being a very reasonable amount. We usually go Wednesdays and Thursday nights. It's a date night sometimes we went to actually Suffs and Stereophonic because of the way that we were out of town. We actually went back to back. So the end of the run of Suffs and then the beginning of the week of Stereophonic. Oh, it sounds like it's going to start raining. TV. If you have Apple TV and you like kind of science fiction-y, watch Pluribus. It is really good. It's Rhea Seehorn. She was the actress in Better Call Saul, and she is so good. And if you don't have Apple TV, whatever, but if you do and you're into it, I highly recommend it. It is basically, the premise is that a signal comes from space and they decode it and they end up deciding it's the instructions for a virus. They don't know what the virus does. And so they create the virus and then they're testing it on various lab animals. And there's an accident, it gets out, it affects a human, and that's where it starts working. And so within short order, It starts infecting humans and no one knows. And then kind of, it's like a tipping point. It's kind of like, you know, the COVID kind of disease things like, hey, you're going to have a slow start. And then all of a sudden it like does it. So it starts kind of that first episode. And it basically creates, it joins everybody into a single consciousness, except for, I think it's 11 people in the entire world who, for whatever reason, aren't. They're immune, their genetics, something makes them not be able to be assimilated. And so then it's a story of this, how going about it. Just watch it. It's really good. The first season just ended. I'm very excited for a second season. It is done by the same creator as Better Call Saul and the other show he did before that one. Yeah, very good. Books. So I finished 2025 with 158 books. The exact number I finished 2024 with just happened that way. So I read 158 books since my last podcast. I read 17, and this is a mix of audio and Kindle books. And similar to what I usually do, I'm going to just highlight some that I think deserve being highlighted. The first is by Barbara Truelove, and it's called Of Monsters and Mainframes. And I really enjoyed this book. It is sci-fi fantasy, not really fantasy, horror-ish kind of thing. Basically, it takes place on a spaceship with a consciousness. So it's kind of murder body. So the spaceship components, the main drive, like the doctor, they all have personalities, let's say. And so Demeter is the name of the spaceship, and on her journey, which she kind of, you're hearing it from her standpoint, you don't really interact with the humans of that, something happens and she gets to port and all of her humans are dead and she doesn't know why. And it ends up being, and I'll read this, basically to keep from getting decommissioned, Demeter must join forces with her own team of monsters. A werewolf, an engineer built from the dead, a pharaoh with otherworldly powers, a vampire with a grudge, a fleet of cheerful spider drones, and together this motley crew will face down the ultimate evil, Dracula. It was so funny. It was so well done. It is a mix of the standard kind of horror genre, like werewolf, Dracula, things like that, but mixed in with space. And it was an enjoyable read. It's called Of Monsters and Mainframes by Barbara Truelove. So highly recommend that. Audiobook I listened to because you know I love my murder mystery, and this was kind of an anti-hero murder mystery. It's called Too Old for This by Samantha Downing. And it is a story told from a different point of view. Lottie Jones is a serial killer who is in her 70s now. And she thought her killing days were behind her. And she had escaped in her younger days, got away with it, and had changed her name and raised a son and things like that. And now she's 70, living her old lady life. And from out of the blue, a woman finds her and wants to do a documentary on people that she was accused of murder and got off with it, not realizing that she actually did it, except, the cop from back then was positive she did it. And this young woman comes into life and wants to basically do an online documentary of her. And so Lottie's got to kill her. And that sets off a series of things. And it's this weird story that it's an anti-hero because obviously Lottie's killing people, but yet you're still rooting for her. And it's kind of the retired serial killer age. It's talking about aging. It's talking about, what happens of getting away, how modern technology has changed, like serial killing and things like that. And it was great. I listened to the audiobook. I really enjoyed it. If you're looking for kind of an entertaining read, I recommend it. It's called Too Old for This by Samantha Downing. And then the last one I read, or the last one I'm going to recommend, is more of a fantasy horror kind of thing. It's T. Kingfisher, which I've started to read a lot more of their novels. And this is one of their earlier ones from 2022 called Nettle and Bone. And it is about a princess who is on a quest to basically murder her sister's husband, the king, who is basically beating her sister. And so it's this magical kind of weird journey where they pick up a quest of kind of a sorcerer kind of type, and then they rescue a knight and things like that. And it's kind of this weird adventure slash slight love story, but it was just really well done. And I really enjoyed reading it. And it's kind of this great, you know, fantasy adventure novel, but just small. It's more like a smaller story instead of like this giant world. It's a smaller story focusing on this she's the third sister, so third princess of a small kingdom, and you know what happens in there. So T. Kingfisher, I'm finding everything that they write really enjoyable. So if you're kind of into that kind of genre, it's like, I think it's like a fantasy novel. They won Best Fantasy Novel by somebody. It was an Oprah top 25 for fantasy of 2022. It's called Nettle and Bone by T. Kingfisher. So recommend that. And I got itchy nose. It's probably from this. And I think that's it. So as I kind of mentioned my upcoming travels, my next trip is the Virginia Beach getaway, and then my Vietnam trip with my brother. And then I'm going to WonderCon with my partner. That's the kind of comic booky popular culture one that we do down in Anaheim, where we go for the weekend. And then my Alaska cruise with my mom and the Grocer Girls will be so much fun. Then I'm going to Virginia with friends in June. My nieces are going to come out and visit me in July. My middle niece, who is 16, has come out every year for years and years. But my youngest niece has never been out to visit me. Typically, they come visit me by themselves, meaning without their parents, when they turn 5. But it didn't work out last year. So this will be her first year coming to see. Her sister is going to take her, and they're going to fly out to visit me. And I think, because I have a set things that I've done with all of my nieces and nephews, you know, my oldest nephew, my niece, and things like that. So I think, because she'll be 6, I think we're going to do Legoland and the Wild Animal Park. So we'll go do a San Diego kind of area. I love Legoland for that age of kid. It's a great park. I think I like it even more than like Disneyland and things like that. So we'll go do that and then some other stuff. And then my niece is too old for that, but it's very funny. I was saying to her, it's going to be like when you used to come with your brother, because when she was that age, there was about the same, I think they have 9 years between them. But when she was like, 7 coming out with him, all she wanted to do was like ride every ride with him, ride everything. And her sister's the same way. She wants to do everything with her big sister. So, when it's, hey, who do you want to ride with? It's always her. It's never me. But she's such a trooper. I have to say that my middle niece is such a trooper. She's very patient with it. Maybe more so than her brother was. Her brother did it. Absolutely. But man, he made faces. So that will be exciting in July. And then right now I have Rhinebeck. And then I'm already planning my 2027. I think I'm going to be doing an Africa trip for my international trip in 2027. I'm thinking about booking it. So already looking forward to next year. And I'll have some other trips that I'm sure get added on in there. There's some weekend trips and some other things that I need to get in there. But I think that's it. It's been a long one. I apologize. I had a lot to talk about and a lot to say. And it's great seeing you. I have there's a lot of podcasts going out. I added a few on for Vlogmas and some new people to me. And I have a backlog of podcasts to be watching. But I'm going to go and get this edited and uploaded hopefully today, and then finish my Lento, and then cast on for my next sweater. Got to figure out which one it's going to be. I think it's going to be that scrappy one. I think I want to alternate like a fingering weight with like a heavier weight yarn, because a fingering weight sweater is going to take me, 2-3 months, versus the heavier weights go faster, of course. And yeah. So I hope that everybody had a great holiday. I hope that 2026, you're excited about it. If 2025 is out, whether it was good or bad for you, and we have a whole another fresh year ahead of us and lots of positives. There's just a lot of positives if you look out there. There's a lot of negatives. We all know there's a lot of that, but I'm going to try to be looking at the positives and friends, family. I have a good life. I have a good job. I have a cat over here sleeping who adores me. Just super adores me, man. And yeah. So wishing you and your knitting all the best going into 2026. I hope to see some of you at various events and things like that. And as usual, I love coming on and just updating all of you. It's friends who've met me or maybe one day will. And I really enjoy doing this. I was looking, this is my 95th episode. And if we go with my audio podcast, which I don't know if you guys know, I did an audio podcast, but I started podcasting in 2010. And I did audio podcasts, I believe, until 2015. And then I've been doing kind of this kind of podcast since 2016, where I've been doing a video podcast. So I've been doing this a long time. And I still like sharing with you. Sharing bits and bobs of my life and my knitting and, all the good things. So I will say people share mostly the good things on these. Not to say that there aren't bad things happening and other things going on in the background and things like that, but don't ever judge by what goes on here, because it is obviously a very sanitized version of my life. It is not my entire life. It is just the fun stuff that I want to share. And yeah, so I hope everyone has an amazing start to their 2026. And I will probably be back on, I don't know, February-ish probably. Definitely try to get on and do a podcast before I do all my big travels, because otherwise it won't be till March. Anyways, that's a wrap from Hollywood, where fantasy meets fiber and dreams are knit. Bye, everybody.